first of all, make sure you have water, tea, something to drink next to you. One of the things that I have learned through my own healing process is that hydration makes a huge difference. So I know that sounds silly to say you need to drink water in order to tap into your highest self, but it really is true. We're made 70% of water. And so make sure you have some water so that you're open, or tea. I mean, tea is water, right? So I just want you guys to be as ready to receive the information as possible. One of the things that I want to do real quick before we start is, yes, it's getting us into the flow. And we all need the flow badly in this day and age. But one of the things that I want to do right now is I want to open up the space for us to receive whatever it is that we're supposed to receive today. Me teaching this masterclass is not about me being an expert in the field. It's not about me knowing more than anyone else. It's not even about me being anything but a conduit for the information that you need for yourself today. I am a messenger. Whatever that you take home today is exactly what you're meant to take home. If there's skepticism that's coming up inside of you, I just want you, so also I want you guys to have a piece of paper and a pen, or if you don't have paper, you can just use your notebook, or your note in your iPhone. If you have an iPhone, unless you're on your iPhone, that won't work. But just grab something you can jot down some notes with. I want you to pay attention where you're having skepticism. I want you to pay attention if you're having this open feeling, if you feel this overwhelming sense of joy when you're hearing something. I want you to write down what it is that you're resonating with, whether it's resistance with it or whether it's aligning with it. So it's so important as we set goals. Like, we're coming into that time of the year where everyone starts saying, oh, I want to make a goal. I want to do this. I want to do that. And it's October, right? So our mind is already thinking of January. We're already going, okay, in January, I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to start sleeping. I'm going to start doing all the things, right? Because that's what we've been trained to do our whole entire lives. I want you guys to be open to a new way of living, even setting aside all the traditional things that we do, because I want you to be able to be open to removing things and then asking your subconscious mind, asking yourself where you're going to go with this information, if you're going to take it anywhere, and just be open to that, because I'm having a relationship with myself and I'm learning my way, but your way may be different for you. So this is purely me sharing my heart and sharing what I know and what I've learned and what has given me so much freedom. Just this morning, I actually did a session for myself, and we can get to that later more, but I did a session for myself, and I have this overwhelming sense of joy that just flooded through me after doing the session for myself. And so I'm really hoping that I give this gift to you to be able to utilize in your life. And obviously I'm here, so if there's more questions after today, don't feel like this is the end of the road. Don't worry. This is my favorite subject. I'm always teaching, and I just love being with you guys and helping you through whatever it is you're dealing with. So on that note, we're going to start with the movie, and it's going to be so fun. You guys are going to love it. So let me share with you the screen, and I want you to pay attention to how you're feeling through this movie and where it takes. Oh my goodness. That's like one of my favorite short Disney movies, right? Yes, it does make so much sense. I always feel like my heart and my head are fighting, and I'm making Zoom calls from now on with music. Yes, exactly, right? You're so welcome. So that movie, it speaks so much to me on what we're told to do, where we're supposed to live, and there's so much emotion that goes into that, because you feel that in yourself. You feel that resistance, and that your head says you should do this and your heart says you should do this. And you saw, like, that moment he dove into the wave, his heart and his mind aligned, and that's where we find our most power. Like, that's when we can do the hard things. That's when we can show up and we can make it through. Like, even when he went back to his desk, he was like, I am so grateful for this job. Like, before it was like boring and glum, and he was like, beep, flip, beep, and then he turned it into something that he loved. So I think it's so beautiful, because it's showing us that, like, no matter what we're doing, if we're doing what we think we're meant to do, or if we're doing something that we don't necessarily love, we can still find joy in it. And then we can find ourselves through that process. And so I wish they would make a second part to this movie, because I feel like there's so much more that they could have gone into after that. Like the end credits kind of shows him having a family and him work, you know, his coworkers and him are like at the campfire. And there's so much to that. Like he's spreading his light, and you saw the whole entire company is now just being gifted by his happiness and his joy. So we get stuck, in stagnant pattern and routine, not taking chances out of fear. But when we take those risks, it adds fullness to our life and flows into our, yes, absolutely. I love that, Jennifer. That's so good. So I am going to try and keep track of the chat. Like I'm going to try and watch that as we go through, but I am so excited to bring you this information. I'm just pulling up my notes real quick. I just get on my mind starts doing its own thing, and then it is totally meant to be. But if I don't have my notes to keep me on track, then we could get off track quickly, because this is my favorite subject. So, sorry, I have like 8 windows open. There we go. Okay. So have you ever felt this way in your life, where you felt like it's like you wake up and you have this thought of like, oh, I could do this today. And you get excited. And then the next thing you know, you're like, I can't do that. Like that could lead to death. It's so scary. Or that could lead to me failing, or that could lead to me ending my relationship, or that could lead to so many different things. And so many of us are not willing to take risks until we're posed with the idea of we may not have another tomorrow. Like so many people that are shown, this is what you have left. They're told this may be all the time that you have. Then they start to live the way that the heart wants them to live, because they realize tomorrow could be their last day. So the authentic self is coming through us when we are allowing our heart and our head to align. We need to have the mind to kind of keep us on task, but we also need the heart to keep us living life to its fullest. So I'm going to move my notes over to the side just in case. If you guys have questions, I'll come back to them. So don't worry, like drop it in the chat, or if you have something that you want to say, you can always raise your hand, but we'll try to get through the information first, and then I'll take questions at the end. So we're all capable of having this authentic self. And sometimes we sit and we think, well, why? Sometimes I feel like I'm so aligned and it comes through easily. And other times I'm like, I just can't get there. Like I'm stuck and I keep experiencing the same thing. Like maybe it's depression. Maybe it's a feeling of like, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. But what we need to realize is we were not created to hold on to old emotions. We weren't created to not experience. We were created to experience and process and let things flow through, whether it's sadness, grief, happiness, joy, depression. We were created to live through our emotions and our feelings. So before we get too much into the emotional part of it, I want to kind of let you guys understand. So the cute commercial, or the cute movie, taught us a little bit about the mind and the heart together. But now I want you guys to listen to another video that's about the way that the heart and the brain work together. It's actually been scientifically proven. I want you guys to understand that this is stuff that people have been studying for years. Like this it's not new information. It's things that we have access to, but it doesn't get talked about a lot because it doesn't necessarily benefit. Well, politically correct, the way to say this is it doesn't benefit everyone involved. So we'll just leave it at that. And you can kind of guess what it might be. But let's go ahead and watch this video on the heart. Let me share my screen for you guys. We're just going to watch a couple of different videos, and then we'll be kind of moving through the material, and I'll be showing you guys some stuff that you can do on your own.
Did you know that your heart has an incredible, unique intelligence unto itself, or that it has a significant influence on our perceptions, emotional experiences, and higher mental processes? And did you know that the heart can actually sense your emotional response to an event before the event has occurred? You may have instinctively felt that the heart was so much more than a blood pump, but science has actually confirmed it. Researchers discovered that the heart has its own intrinsic nervous system that sends a lot of information to the brain, affecting the way we feel, think, and perceive. In fact, the heart actually sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. Scientists refer to this as the little brain in the heart. But don't let the diminutive name fool you. The heart brain can act independently of the brain in your head. Its neurons have long-term and short-term memory and extensive sensory capacity.
Okay. Could you guys hear that the whole time? Am I muted? Hang on. Let's see here. Okay, there we go. Let me share it. Okay, you could hear it. So I'm not
good, but it was on fast mode.
Yeah, I'm gonna slow it down because I
Okay.
tend to listen to things like that. So hang on one second. Let me slow it down, and then that way it's not so fast. Let's see how fast this one is.
The heart and brain communicate with each other in a complex dance. As we experience emotions through the day, our heart rhythm patterns tend to reflect how we're feeling. This information is monitored by the emotional centers in the brain, where they are then perceived as feelings of fear, anger, joy, appreciation, etc. When we get bogged down with stress, worry, impatience, information overload, or indecision, the heart's rhythm has a jagged and irregular pattern. The resulting disorder or incoherence in the nervous system creates noise or static that in essence causes the neurons in the brain to get out of sync, resulting in impaired mental functioning or cortical inhibition. We can feel energy drained with more mental fog, making it difficult to focus, remember things, listen deeply, and make clear decisions. However, on the upside, when we experience feelings like love, kindness, appreciation, or compassion, it creates a smooth, coherent heart rhythm pattern. This has a calming and balancing effect and creates more harmonious cooperation between the heart, brain, and hormonal system. This not only improves how we feel, but also our ability to think clearly. We can see creative solutions to problems and more easily discern intelligent choices and decisions. This is cortical facilitation. The good news is we don't have to wait until we happen to feel good to experience this uplift. We can choose to create it ourselves. Research shows that when we practice activating positive heart qualities, care, cooperation, forgiveness, etc., it has a carryover effect that increases the overall baseline of coherence in our system. So we have more resilience during stressful experiences and can more easily maintain our poise, confidence, and self-security when challenges arise. This is the intelligence of a coherent heart. We offer many free tips and techniques to increase your heart coherence based on our 30 years of research on the subject. Head to heartmath.org/resources to learn more.
So I hope that kind of clarifies the scientific part of it. There's also a lot more research that I've done on, the video froze for you guys. It's probably because I was sharing something that I'm not supposed to. They do that to me a lot, like where you can hear it and then you can't see the whole video, but that's okay. You guys got the message. So the heart actually has like a highway that runs between, it's called the vagus nerve. It runs between the heart and the brain. And it actually is the way that we communicate all of our needs, both directions. And then, there's also our gut health. I know that Sarah has done a lot of stuff on this as well. And so our gut health actually, that directly ties into that same pathway. And so when this kind of gets out of sync, it can actually be caused by trapped emotions in our body. So I want to first kind of talk about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind before we get too far into the emotional part. I realize that a lot of you may already know this, but let's just do a quick review. So the conscious mind is the one who is thinking, moving about, making choices, planning, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling. The physical world is connected to the conscious mind, and it's only using a fraction of our brain power to do these tasks. So if this is true, then what is the rest of the brain doing? Well, we will refer to the rest of the brain power as the subconscious mind. So it's the sleeping mind. The silent and unconscious intelligence within you is constantly busy storing information and keeping your body's intricate systems running efficiently. It's also important to understand that the subconscious mind exerts an unseen yet profound influence over the things that we do and how we behave and how we feel. So I want you to imagine for one moment that you have to take over all of the functions that your subconscious mind performs. So this would be your digestive system, taking over breathing, telling your cells how to create enzymes and proteins. So imagine for a moment that you had to tell your body with your conscious mind, breathe, pump your heart, move your arm, lift your water. Like if you had to take on all of that information, your subconscious mind holds, you would be so overwhelmed. So like imagine the amount of stuff that your conscious brain holds and you get overwhelmed sometimes. Think about if you took on the subconscious brain that's always working in the background. So like your computer, your subconscious mind is capable of storing vast amounts of information as well as tapping into information unseen and not yet experienced by the conscious mind. There's a whole world that lies inside of our imagination, but that's a whole nother topic. So we're not going to go off on that. So if you ever want to know more of that, I actually have another class that I talk about with that. So just let me know if you're interested in that process. But now I think everybody kind of understands the purpose of the conscious and the subconscious. So there is research that has been done. So they do brain surgery, and the research shows that if they keep the patient awake and alert, then the brain actually doesn't feel the pain. So like when they're doing surgery, that person is alert. So like if they're in there and they're touching things, there actually have been times where people have experienced old memories that are in their brain in that moment in surgery. So it triggers things within our mind. And it's also said that if they touch a specific part of the brain, that a specific memory can return as if it was happening like right then in the moment, and they can experience smells, taste, touch, anything. So Dr. Bradley Nelson is the man who created the emotion code. He has a book called The Emotion Code and a book called The Body Code. So if you're interested in learning more of the detailed stuff about this, those are the books you could read. So he believes that the subconscious mind stores every moment that you've ever experienced in your whole life. And I do agree with him. I think that the subconscious mind is capable of pulling up any memory that you ever experienced every second of every day. So I believe that every face you've seen in the crowd, every smell, every voice, every song, every taste, every touch, every sensation has been recorded by the subconscious mind. So if you think about like bacterias and funguses that invade your body, how does your body know how to fight these off? They give us a flu shot, right? They give us a pseudo virus so that our body can learn how to fight these things. So I don't want to get into like the politics stuff and like medical stuff, but that they're using our ability for the body to learn how to fight things off in order to keep us healthy. So we can do that actually without having to take those shots, I believe, but that's one of my own belief systems. So, you have to decide for yourself what you want to do and where you want to go with that. So what are emotions? The definition of emotions are conscious mental reactions. So we're aware of this conscious mental reactions such as anger or fear, subjectively experienced as strong feelings, usually directed toward a specific object and typically accompanied by a physiological and behavioral change in the body. So a neuroscientist would tell you that they originate in the amygdala limbic system, one of the brain's cortices that determines human reactions to stimuli. This brain activity affects our human behavior and emotional responses and can even cause physical sensations, which we also call that somatic. So if you hear me say somatic later, that's the physical part. For example, if we encounter a dangerous animal in the wild, only one emotion makes sense: fear. This is a primal genetic emotion. Fear increases our heart rate. It tells us that a situation is unsafe. It demands that we do something about it. We might choose to run away or coordinate an attack on the predator, but either way, fear is what drives us to take action. So emotions are essentially a response to what is happening around us, which then cause a feeling within us, which that feeling within us lead us to our thoughts and then actions and then behavior. So feelings can be diluted or distorted by the stories that we already have consciously or unconsciously created based on past events. But why do you think we have a story created around a past experience? So emotions are vibrations of pure energy. every emotion has its own unique vibration frequency. And then our body is able to remember that. So why is it sometimes that like feelings of depression, sadness, anxiety, fear, anger, conflict, insecurity, low self-esteem, the list can go on. But why are we experiencing these feelings without external stimuli? Like maybe you're sitting and all of a sudden you just have this overwhelming sense of sadness or this overwhelming sense of insecurity, because our body may have a trapped emotion that is no longer necessary, but the emotion was never processed. So it's now just lingering within your body. So everything in the universe is made up of energy, including us. So I want you to actually watch this video with Dr. Nelson explaining it, because I love how he explains it. And he talks about our cellular structure. So let me go ahead and pop this one up. And it may pause the video again, but hopefully you'll still be able to hear him talking about it. So we'll see what happens.
To truly understand what your emotional baggage consists of, you have to know a little bit about something called quantum physics. Now don't worry, okay? I'm not going to start drawing formulas on a blackboard. It's actually really simple. Look at your hand for a moment. Your hand looks pretty solid, doesn't it? And you know what your hand looks like, right? You've seen that hand a million times before. But if you could look at your hand under a powerful microscope, it would look totally different, wouldn't it? If you magnified your hand 40 times under a microscope, you'd be looking at the individual cells that make up your hand. And if you kept zooming in at about 850,000 times magnification, you'd be looking at the molecules that make up the parts of your hand. And at about 1,000,000 power magnification, you would be face to face with a single individual atom. Now, if you could look inside that atom, you'd see that there's really nothing in there, nothing but empty space and some infinitesimally tiny energies that are zipping around at the speed of light. And that is really what we are. That's what you are. Think about this for a moment. You are a being of pure energy. You are an incredibly complex arrangement of pure energies that are all flying in close formation, giving you this experience that you're having in this world. It's really pretty amazing when you start to think about it. Well, guess what? Everything is energy. The whole universe is energy. The earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, your body, your desk, your car, your house. It's all pure energy when you get right down to it. Well, your thoughts are pure energy as well, and we can measure those thoughts electronically. And emotions are also pure energy. When you are feeling an emotion, what you are really feeling is a particular frequency, a particular vibrational energy. By the way, every emotion has its own unique frequency. For example, if you're feeling the emotion that we call anger, what you're feeling is a different vibrational energy than the emotion that we call depression, for example, and so on. Every emotion is different. Well, we all experience emotions all the time, don't we? But I want you to understand something. Most of the time, we are able to deal with the emotions that we feel just fine. We feel the emotion, we process it, and we move on with our life. But sometimes the emotion is too intense. Sometimes the energy of that sorrow, that frustration, that depression, or that anger is just too powerful for us to deal with. It's during these times that the energy of this emotion can actually become trapped in the body.
So basically, I don't know if, yes, body memory, exactly, Jan. Jan is my mom too, so I might call her mom. So, you know, the idea was kind of foreign way back in the day when we first started learning about the body and energy and what it all meant. And now that we're kind of able to prove things, it's becoming more and more easy for us to believe some of the stuff that sounds kind of hokey, right? Like I remember when I first heard this, I was like, I don't know, it sounds a little crazy, but it's funny because at some point along the message, I heard something and it was like something clicked and I was like, this makes perfect sense. Everything kind of lined up and I was like, I have that. I totally feel that in myself. And then it was really easy because it was like my subconscious mind said, yes, this is the information you've been waiting for. Like it pulled it up from somewhere and it was like, I knew it already. And it felt like home. It was weird. So I want to talk about emotional baggage for just a minute. Like it takes on a totally new meaning when you think about emotional baggage. And emotional baggage can be pain, it can be disease, it can be self-sabotage, it can be depression, anxiety. And I want us to do something real quick with our paper right now. So I'm going to list off a bunch of problems and I want you to write down which ones resonate with you, and then we'll come back to this later. So, and I'm not going to list like every problem in the world. I'm just going to list some of the top ones that come up for people. Depression, anxiety, pain anywhere in the body. Do you have any sort of phobia? Do you suffer from panic attacks? Difficulty in making as much money as you would like to make? Outbursts of crying? Finding the love of your life? Feeling unfulfilled? Do you have judgment or resentment when you see other people who are living a life filled with joy, or maybe have successes that you don't have yet? And even when you do have success, is it short-lived, or it's not what you expected it to be? Or maybe your life just isn't quite turning out the way that you thought it would. So if any of those came up for you, I want you to just note it, and we'll come back around to it later in the class. But right now I want to walk you through releasing emotional baggage. So I'm going to share a few tools with you that thousands of people, like there's probably hundreds of thousands of people now, because this information, the numbers that I had from the book were probably from I don't remember when the book came out, but it was quite a while ago. So it's probably more now, but people across the globe are getting rid of pain, phobias, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and even self-sabotage. And these emotions are probably disrupting your life more than you even know. So let's talk about where emotional baggage comes from. So everyone has it, but what is it really? So emotional baggage are the times that we experience intense negative emotions such as sadness, grief, sorrow, frustration, and it can continue to affect us for the remainder of our lives in a very unhealthy way if we don't release it. So there are many ways you can release trapped emotions, but this method is the one that I have come across, that you use your subconscious mind to heal yourself. So can you think back to a time when you felt that your heart was just going to break? Maybe you felt abused physically, emotionally, sexually. Can you remember a time that you felt so depressed it was difficult to get out of bed? Or a time that you were so sad that you cried yourself to sleep at night? Think about these things. And if any one thing comes to your mind, I want you to jot it down, and then we'll come back to that as well. Because I'm sure for me, I know if I think about like those times that I had those moments, I know they're linked to something. Like immediately I've gotten so good at talking to my subconscious mind now through using this process that I can actually call up the question in my mind. And I know instantly most of the time what it is that was bothering me. So we have already established that emotions are energy, right? So what happens when energy is expressed in the form of an emotion? So I want to tell you how an emotion is processed first, and then I want to tell you a story. So the emotional experience works like this. First, our body generates a vibration, and oftentimes the emotional vibration comes before anything even happens, because our subconscious mind is actually already projecting and expecting it, which that's another different class that we can talk about, like how our thoughts can actually project what we receive. But we begin to feel emotions when that vibration starts, and then thoughts and physical sensations come with it next. So step one is the body generates a vibration. Step two, we begin to feel the emotion, and then thoughts and physical sensations start coming in. So then number three, we choose to let the emotion go. So cry, get angry, sob, whatever it is that you're going through, and move on after a few seconds to up to several minutes. Maybe sometimes it's even longer, just depends on the extensiveness of the experience. And this can vary from person to person, depending on whether they're healthy, are you hydrated, are you experiencing a deep amount of stress? But they can move fairly quickly, just depending on the intensity. And the fourth and final step is processing. So once processing is complete, we've successfully moved on from the emotional experience, and it shouldn't cause us any more problems. So now, if the third or second step is interrupted, then the emotional experience is incomplete, and the energy of the emotion is likely to become trapped in the body, and that's where we get the trapped emotion. So what is a trapped emotion? as much as we would like to forget our difficult emotional times, the influence of these events may stay with us in the form of trapped emotions. So sometimes we can consciously recall these challenging events, and sometimes we can't, but it doesn't really matter because the subconscious mind does remember, and using the emotion code is how we can tap into accessing those trapped emotions and then processing them to completion. So each time you have an emotion, like let's just use anger, each time you get angry, you can get stuck in the middle of whatever event you're experiencing, because when you have a trapped emotion, that vibration of anger is already present and readily available. So if, let's say you have a trapped emotion in your chest of anger, and somebody makes you angry, it's easy to just get fired up. Like you're just like hot within seconds over something that could be so simple and small. So I want to use the example of, because I didn't give this example yet. I want to use the example of a waiting room. So, or even a grocery store. Say you're somewhere and people are waiting in line, maybe you're waiting to get into the doctor, and the waiting room is packed, and someone comes in, they check in, and they're like, you can already feel their agitation. They've already like, I've had a hard day. I don't need to be waiting in this time. Like I need to get myself seen. And everybody in the room can feel before that person even starts showing signs of being angry, they can feel it before it happens, right? So that's the first step of the emotion. Then all of a sudden this person's like, man, how long are we going to wait here? Like, do they not know what they're doing? Like, why do I have to wait? I have places to be. And all of a sudden you now have this person who's vibrating at this angry level. And then now you've got other people going, yeah, I've been sitting here for 15 minutes. And now they're all resonating with each other, talking about their experience of anger because they don't want to wait anymore. And then you do get those people that are kind of like, I'll just wait. It's fine. And what is the difference between not only the people that are getting angry, but the people that are not, that are easily like, it's fine. It's the fact that some of those people already have those emotions kind of waiting somewhere in their body to just be hit. So it's like a tuning fork, right? So a tuning fork, if you actually stick a whole bunch of tuning forks in a room, and then you have different hertz, levels of hertz for those tuning forks, like 440 or 520. If I ring the 520 hertz on that tuning fork, if everything else in the room is not a 520 hertz, nothing will resonate. But if there's another tuning fork that's 520 hertz across the room and you hit one, the other one will start to vibrate. So that's how emotions work. Most emotions can easily be brought up. So instead of having that within you, when you are able to process and release those emotions, you don't have to constantly be right at that hot level. Like it's like lighting a fuse, that the flame is just like waiting right there to be lit. So the term like emotional baggage is a lot bigger than you could ever even believe, but trapped emotions actually consist of like well-defined energies. So they have a shape and a form. Just as you can see electricity, or just as you cannot see electricity, you can't see a trapped emotion, but you don't need to see electricity to believe it's there, right? So they're actually being able to start testing now and show that there's places in the body that are able to show that they're out of coherence, kind of like that video they were talking about with the heart coherence. So these intense emotions seem to form invisible balls of energy in your body, and they can be the size of an orange up to a cantaloupe, and it can lodge anywhere in the body, and it can cause pain anywhere in the body. But trapped emotions don't always cause pain. Sometimes trapped emotions can actually cause circumstances in your life. Even like a temporary struggle or particularly bad day can produce a trapped emotion. So I'm just going to list off a few of the things that are likely to result in trapped emotions, so you can kind of start thinking about, well, what could mine be coming from? Because most people have a trapped emotion, unless you're actively every day releasing it. So divorce or relationship problems, feelings of inferiority, home or work stress, financial stress, negative feelings about yourself, negative self-talk, physical illness of yourself or a loved one, physical or emotional combat, physical, mental, verbal, or sexual abuse, rejection. And this list is obviously not everything, but those are just a few of the things. So if something came up for you on that list, go ahead and jot it down on that paper that we've been kind of taking notes on. So for a second, I want to talk about Christopher Reeves. You guys all remember Superman, right? He was paraplegic. He was in the wheelchair and ended up passing away fairly young. And he had a wife, which I don't think she's very often talked about. Her name was Dana Reeves. Dana Reeves was a non-smoker who died of lung cancer. And although conventional wisdom holds that her death was due to secondhand smoke, there's actually a possibility that her death could have been caused by a trapped emotion. So the lungs produce the emotion, what we call grief, and an overabundance of grief will certainly lead to the creation of trapped emotions, often affecting the parent organ. So each organ is connected to a particular emotion. So kind of as we do these things, like figuring out where these things are, it'll make sense to you. If you're like having pain, let's say in your shoulder, then we can kind of determine the different quadrants of the body, what organs are close to that area or what it could be from based on the body area that you're having pain. So some of you, I don't know if any of you have heard of Louise Hay. I know my mom has. And I think I've mentioned it to Leslie before, but Louise Hay has since passed, but she is an amazing, I guess, world thought thinker, like a new thought thinker, new thought teacher. And she had a similar belief system that the body could tell you where you needed healing based on what you were experiencing. And then you could heal yourself by healing the emotions that you were experiencing from that. So let's say, for example, strep throat. The throat is your point of expression. It's how you express who you authentically are. It's how you verbally communicate with people what you need, your desires. And if you have strep throat, typically you could probably look in your life and go, oh, wow, I really haven't been voicing what I need. Or, oh, wow, at work, they've been telling me I'm not allowed to have an opinion. Like you can probably link it if you go and you look and see what there's actually a book that I have. Oh no, it's right here. I even got it out just so I could have it. Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. This is so good. So this is another way we can actually transform our emotions, but this is a lot more detailed and you have to kind of experience the work. The shadow work is what it's called. And I like the emotion code better because you're not going back and digging up necessarily all the trash and saying, okay, I have to relive this. Like I did that like all last year. I spent a lot of time in recovery and it actually made me regress backwards to healing. And so I had to kind of like recognize like, okay, we've acknowledged some of my trauma. We've acknowledged some of the things I've gone through. And now I have to set it aside and process it. We're not reliving it. We're processing it. So this is not about reliving anything. So Dr. Nelson is suggesting that you don't have to do the nitty-gritty work on everything, but that you could actually just release the emotions just by doing some of these simple tests. So Dana Reeves certainly had reason to grieve, right? Her husband died, and within 18 months, she had passed. So that would be a huge amount of grief. If you lost your husband who you loved and you didn't process the emotion, then it could be something that could lead you to death. So belief systems are a whole other masterclass, but do you have to believe in the emotion code in order for it to work? Dr. Bradley says no, but he does say it does help things move quickly. Do you have to believe in muscle testing? Do you have to believe in vibration? Our emotions are vibrations? Not necessarily, because there is an underlying universe of laws that just work on their own. And so I believe that if I hold for you that the intention of, yes, energy work, the intention of clearing energy and the intention to make these emotions, just not make them, but release them, then I believe that that can be something that can happen even if you don't have a high belief. But I also have another belief class too, that if you guys are interested in learning more about shifting your beliefs, that's another thing that I do. I have a bunch of stuff in my handbag. It's great. So we've talked about the trapped emotions creating pain and that they're a ball of energy. So how does it create the pain? Well, if your body's an energy field, right? So if we're electricity, basically, then the ball of energy, this trapped emotion, is distorting your energy somewhere in your body. So if you imagine kind of like the old TV set or the old radio, you know how you like tune it to like the right frequency and it was like, it made like crackly. It's almost like as if somebody's moving your antenna, like that ball of energy within your body is changing your tuner. And so you're having to readjust because it just keeps shifting the frequency. So you remember how like sometimes you hold the antenna, and I could be totally aging myself. I don't know, like Jennifer, you look pretty young. I'm like, maybe, do you remember like the antennas on radios? Okay, that's good. Cause I'm like, man, I might be aging myself. I don't think my kids would know this, but you remember how you have to like hold it, or like even the old TV set, you had to like hold it to get the right station. And when you would let go, it would stop. And then you're like, well, it's because we're frequency, right? So if you have something that's distorting your frequency, it can cause you to not be emitting your authentic, happy, joyful frequency that you should be living. So, if you go back to our example of the angry person in the waiting room, you can see how energy can resonate and move quickly through other energy sources and begin to resonate throughout space. So, sorry, I'm just going and making sure that I didn't miss any questions. So this is also known as collective consciousness. When a group of people hold the same beliefs and they all get together to make a change, then the power of the group makes the change happen quickly. So my parents said, oh, good. Okay, I feel better now. I was like, man, I haven't thought about those in a long time. I'm going to ask my kids. I have 15-year-old boys, and then I have a 6-year-old. They would be like, what? An antenna? Maybe they knew, because we do have an antenna for like the weather, but that's it. So I'm going to give you a couple of things and we're kind of getting close to the end. So I'm going to give you a couple of things that we're going to take with you today to start processing emotions. And we're not talking old emotions. We're going to get to that part where you can release your own emotions. But how do we release emotions when we're living day to day? Well, the number one way is staying present in the moment. So if I'll give you an example. I have one of my 15-year-old boys every day wakes up with the same things that he does every day, and they drive me bonkers. But on the days that I wake up and I'm like expecting him to come down, being crabby because he's tired, or he's not going to do his chores, or he's not going to get himself out. Sorry, someone's coming to my door. I'm like, I'm going to have to ignore the doorbell. I've never had anyone come to my door on a Saturday. That's weird. So they're going to ring the bell in a second. I'm going to just keep teaching. But now I forgot what I was saying. What was I talking about? Oh no.
You were talking about one of your boys coming down. You were expecting them.
Thank you. Yes. I'm so glad that you remember, because I was like, oh, I gotta see. That's how a thought, the emotion that I was having, I'll just share with you. I'll be vulnerable. The emotion I was having is like, oh, what are they selling? Because they have books in their hands. And then I'm like, oh, they're probably trying to make me believe. And so the old story, right? The old story of the Mormon coming to the door. And there's nothing wrong with anything that people are doing, but I don't like people coming to my house trying to talk to me about stuff. I always ask permission if I share, right? Like, you're here because I asked you to be here, but I don't go knocking on my neighbor's doors to tell them all this information. So it's an experience and it's emotion that I'm having from I probably got it like as a kid, like there's probably something that my parents, I'm sure my mom could probably think of people that came to the door. But so every day he comes down and he's upset or he's frustrated. And if I'm expecting the old story to be happening every single day, and I'm sitting on the couch and I see him, and the first experience that I have is, he's going to come down with that same attitude. I know I probably have a trapped emotion that I didn't process with something that we had together. So what do I need to do in order to process that and relieve it? I need to probably ask myself if there's something within me, which we'll get to how we do that later. But if I am remaining present in this moment and not thinking about the stuff that he did yesterday or 2 days ago, when he comes down the stairs, my response is going to be, good morning. Like, I already can feel it. I can feel the love that I have for him. If I'm in the moment, I'm thinking love, and he's my child and I just love him. And it's a totally different experience. And even, yes, love is an emotion, but most of us don't have a problem with processing love because it's very easy. It feels good. So that's one of the ways that we stay processing emotions, is remaining present. The second one that's really huge is remaining aware, so that you can consciously choose not to experience a disruption in the processing of your emotions. So this is something that I practice every day in my life. I know there are certain things that trigger me, and it's because of my practicing awareness that I'm able to recognize, oh, I feel that old feeling, that old vibration is coming up, and I probably need to remain aware and present. And then after, I've experienced, if I notice that there's still some sort of resonation of some sort of negative emotion, then I might do some muscle testing on myself and ask myself if there's something that needs to be released. So, I'm not saying that every emotion that you've ever experienced is going to get trapped. I'm not saying that every negative experience is necessarily somewhere in your body, but the big, intense negative experiences are the things that are going to get trapped. It's going to be things like a car accident, maybe a fight that your parents had in front of you, or and you probably know these things. Like, you'll probably, as I'm saying things, you probably had a thought in your mind like, oh yeah, I remember this one time. Oh yeah. So thoughts are energy, and the thoughts that you create are energy. So be aware that the next time you're having an intense emotional experience, what thoughts are you having around it? Because we don't have to have the same thoughts that we always have. We can shift those, because thought energy has no boundary. So your thoughts are not confined to a certain volume, location, like in your physical body. So your thoughts can actually reach other people. So while I like to think that all of our unspoken thoughts are private and that they're confined to our own heads, it's just not true. So each of us is like a radio station broadcasting our thought energy into and in the space around us, and emanating around us, and filling the immensity of space, touching all of us for the good or for the ill. So both negative and positive. So have you ever stood in a line and stared at the back of someone's head and then they turn around? That's thought energy, right? Because you're thinking about that person, you're looking at them, and you're wondering what they're doing or what they're thinking. Or have you thought about a friend and then all of a sudden they call you on the phone, you're like, hey, I was just thinking about you. That's thought energy, right? So it's so easy to do. We just don't realize that we're doing it. So the reality is the entire human family is connected by energy. Like right now, I bet I could easily, people who are in this work, I could easily think, and they would probably text or message me if I thought hard enough about it. And I bet I could do that. Like right now I'll do it, and I'll let you know if he texts. So when something or when people are suffering and dying on the other side of the planet, we feel their cries and their anguish on a subconscious level, and we're darkened by it. And in the same breath, when the world is having something wonderful happen on the other side of it, we're brightened together by it. One example that I want to give you is a specific test that they did on a Vietnam veteran. So this gentleman had been in the war. He had severe trauma. He had PTSD, just all kinds of things that he was experiencing. And they decided to run a test. They sat him in a chair, they played some old war video, and they said, okay, we're going to take some of your white blood cells out, we're going to put them in a petri dish, and we're going to monitor their activity over here, and we're going to monitor his activity within his body. So they put the video on. At the exact same time that he started watching the video, the cells in the petri dish started reacting in the same fashion as he did the cells in his body. So then they thought, well, what if we move them further away? Maybe it's because they're in close proximity. So they took them 3 miles down the road, did the same thing again. The cells from his body reacted in the same way in a traumatic response in the dish away from his body. So this also explains the power of a mother being connected to her child when they're in trouble. We call this mother's intuition. And I think that fathers have it too, but I think that women are just a little more sensitive. We're more in tune with our feminine side. This is kind of how we were created, but I don't believe that has to be that way. I think that men are capable of having a very strong intuition as well. So the connection could be at a cellular level. It could not just be thought energy, but it could be cellular. So for example, since my mom is here, I'm going to use this example. When I did our first emotion code session, I actually had pain in my hip, and I had texted her and I was like, hey, are you having right hip pain? Because I've got something going on. And I was feeling what she was going through. Now, does that mean that you can only experience that from family members or people who are genetically connected to you? Not necessarily, because if you think about it, if we believe in evolution, or even if we believe in, Adam and Eve, whatever your belief system is, you have to believe that we're all kind of connected cellularly because we're all human. We all came from somewhere along the lines if you go back to the very beginning. So if you think about a baby, when it's created, you have the chromosomes from the dad and the chromosomes from the mom, and then they're blended together. Well, what is that? It's cells from the mom and the dad coming together, and then all of that DNA, the genetic memory, is stored in those cells. So if there was trauma that happened to the parents or the grandparents or the ancestors, that could be stored cellularly in that structure. So that you can actually receive trapped emotions from parents. You can receive trapped emotions from other people in a room. If you go through something that's not even yours, but you're in a space that's close by, you can actually absorb trapped emotions from other people just by being in close proximity, especially if you're an empathic person. I'm an empath, and I have to prepare myself to go out in public. I'm overwhelmed by large amounts of people in those places. So now I figured out how to close myself and put a bubble around me and kind of protect myself. So you can have inherited emotions, you can have absorbed emotions. So there's all kinds of things. And if you're interested, you can read the book, but I'm trying to put a lot of that information into this session so you guys kind of have a good overview. So thoughts can even affect plants. So I'm getting now to where we're going to learn how to do this muscle testing for ourselves. So did you know that thoughts can affect the rate of growth in plants, fungi, and bacteria? So a physicist at Stanford had shown that thoughts can affect electronic instruments, and studies have proven that when the energy of one person's thought is directed intentionally, it can impact someone else regardless of whether they're nearby or all the way around the world. So they've actually proved this. And we already talked about the tuning fork, so you don't have to go back to that. The emotion code is finding trapped emotions along the same line as detecting the vibration of another person's thoughts or feelings. So let's say you have neck pain. The neck pain could have been caused by an outburst of anger from 20 years ago when you got divorced. You had a fight with your spouse, it ended in the end of your marriage, and maybe you didn't process the anger you had around it, and now the anger is trapped in your neck. And then what started as a very minimal amount of pain in your neck is now a ball of energy that is not only causing you pain, but it's causing you a short temper. Because you have this ball of emotion, this ball of anger is humming away, this vibration or frequency that we call anger. It's humming away in your body 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you might be a little more quick to respond with anger if something upsets you. So we kind of talked about that. So the emotion codes uses muscle testing to ask the subconscious mind questions because it knows exactly where the problem resides in the body. So this is our final tool. So I want you guys we're going to do this together. The muscle testing tool, talking to the subconscious mind. So you can do this yourself, or we could do it in a session. But one of my gifts is healing. So if you feel like if you try it and it doesn't really seem to be working for you, I can actually help you. And because I'm so new to this, I've been doing it for probably about 2 months now. And I do it easily in myself and in my family. But if you need some help, I'm doing free sessions like the first go around. You can just come and I can help you with it. So just let me know. And I've got my calendar set up that you can log in and do that. So one of the first things is I always do an intention statement or a prayer statement, whatever you want to call it is fine. I refer to God. Sometimes I refer to higher power, but whatever you feel comfortable just asking for divine intention of helping everyone involved and asking that we open up the space, kind of like what we did in the beginning, opening the space to receive what you need or to release what you need. And then I state that I'm here to help whoever's in front of me and that we want the best for all involved. And we ask for guidance during the process. So a plant grows towards the light, right? I don't know if you knew this or not. I'm a plant nerd, but plants grow towards the light. Also, if you put a plant in a room next to a speaker, if you play classical music or happy upbeat music, it will actually grow in the direction of the speaker. If you play heavy metal, rock, crazy, harsh music, they've actually done studies where it will grow away from that. And even the roots will start to turn away from that chaotic noise. But if you put soothing music, the plant's yes. So That's the same thing that we're going to be using here. So basically, our body is capable of responding to positive or negative input in an automatic way, just like the plant. So your body will actually sway forward if you're holding thoughts of truth or positivity, and it will sway backwards if you are holding thoughts of negativity or frightened or incongruency, like things that aren't true. So we're going to use this amazing ability of the human body as a simple method of getting answers from the subconscious computer. So I want you guys to stand up on your feet. Everybody stand up. Let me move my computer up. And we're all going to take a drink of water. Do you have water? I want everybody to drink just a drink of water. Oops. All right. Because that's the other thing, is being dehydrated can actually cause you not to be able to be testable. And I didn't know this until like just recently. I don't know how I missed it, but so the way this works is typically the human mind, it will only works on one thing at a time most of the time. So it's going to be whatever's in front of you. So right now you're in front of me, and so you've probably been focused on me. So now I want you to hold thoughts of, let's hold thoughts of war, something negative. So I want you to just kind of relax, stand with your feet hip width apart. And I hope you took a drink of water. And I want you to think about something that makes you sad, something that maybe is just negative and not truthful. And you'll start to notice, and don't force it, but you'll start to notice your body will sway kind of backwards, like away from that thought. So hold it right in the front of your mind, and don't feel frustrated if it's not working for you the first go around. It's okay. Sometimes it takes a minute to just kind of like, all right, I can do this. You know, it's new to you. You've never been introduced to your subconscious mind on this type of communication. So it might be nervous. You might feel nervous. That's okay. Don't be nervous though, because your subconscious mind wants you to talk to it. It wants to change things for you. It wants to help you. It wants to be whatever, you want it to be. And I have another message that I listened to this morning that I think I sent it to my mom and our group, but it's so good. It was Steve Harvey. Anyways, that's another side point. So stand there and imagine war. And you can start to feel yourself start to lose balance a little bit. And don't fall over, but you might have this stronger sense the more you think about it. And then I want you to just clear all your thoughts for a minute. So drop the war out, clear all your thoughts. And I want you to think about gratitude and love. Maybe think about someone that you care about. And this is how we start setting the baseline for yeses and nos. So yes is the swaying forward. It's the feeling of moving towards something that feels good, and no is moving away from something that does not feel good. And sometimes you'll get really strong answers, and sometimes they'll be really weak, and you may have to wait and come back to the testing, because sometimes you're just not open to testing in that moment. So I want you to start with your name. So you're going to hold your name in your mind that you are. So I am Cassie. I'm going to say I am Cassie, and I'm going to put it in the front of my mind. And if you get a response of like leaning back, I want you to just drop all the thoughts again, reset your mind, try and remove everything, and then say your name until you get a strong swaying. It should be forward, leaning in the direction of who you are. I am Cassie. Now, if you're having a battle of like knowing who you are, that could be, we may have to clear that out first before we can do anything else. So just say, I am Cassie. And then I want you to say a different name. Like, so let's see let's just say I am John. No, that's too close to Jim. Let's say, I am Alex, because none of us are Alex. And hold out the name Alex is like, nope, that's not me. So you notice that your subconscious mind is actually answering questions. And I've actually gotten so good at this now. I don't necessarily need this way unless I'm unsure of the message that I'm hearing. My subconscious mind is actually openly and willingly talking to me now. It's very weird. Like I never thought that it was going to be this way. So as we hold the thought of ourselves, so I want you to go back to focusing on yourself. And I want you to just for a moment, ask yourself if you have any trapped emotions. And 90% of people on our planet, their body is going to sway forward. It's going to say yes. So does everybody, and if I can have people raise hands, did everybody get a yes? Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if Sarah's still here. I bet I'll have to ask her later. She can test and let me know. So then the next step, and I can send out the spreadsheet that I use for this, but the next step then is to ask, am I able to release this trapped emotion? Because sometimes you're not. Sometimes you might have a trapped emotion and you're just not ready for it. And your subconscious mind knows this. So now you can say, am I ready to release this trapped emotion? And you'll get a yes or a no. And if you get a no, sometimes I would take a drink of water and then I would ask again, can I release this trapped emotion? Because sometimes it's just the vibration it's not able to like clearly state what it needs. So did everybody get yes, they can remove it? Okay, so now you guys won't be able to kind of go through this, the whole, maybe I could throw it up on my screen. That's what I should have done. So now you're going to ask yourself, you're going to ask yourself, is this emotion in column A? And did you get a yes or a no answer? Did you get a yes for column A? Okay. And did you get a no then, Jennifer? A yes. Is it so now so mom, keep your A, but I want you to ask, is your trapped emotion in column B? Did you get a clear answer on that one? No, so try A again. Is A coming across as a yes? Yeah, it looks like it. Okay. So now you're going to ask yourself, is the emotion in an even row? And is it coming up as a yes on that one too? Nope, on Jennifer. So maybe, is it an odd row? Okay, so stay with the even, mom. So you have even and A, right? And then Jennifer, try, is it in an odd row? So now I'm going to throw this up. I have the chart here. So let me show you guys what we're looking at here. So I don't want you to start reading the chart and saying that you want to pick what it is. So now if you have column A, we're going to use column A. If you have column B, both of you had A, I believe, right? And then, so if you have your even or your odd, now you're going to ask one by one because there's only 6 total. So if it's odds, you're going to go 1, 3, or 5. So you'll say, do I have a trapped emotion in 1? Do I have a trapped emotion in 3? Do I have a trapped emotion in 5? And if yours is even, you'll do the same thing with the evens. So mine is in 2A. So does everybody have their, and you guys can unmute if you want to, you don't have to. I am still recording, but I'll cut this end part off. I won't share this part. And then if anybody
2A for me, I'm just gonna say that quickly. 2A.
2A, okay, that's what I had as well. And then anyone else? 1 and 3. Okay, so now what I would do is I would ask, can I release the trapped emotion in row 1? And then were you in A or B? A, okay. So can I release the trapped emotion in 1A? And then if it says yes, then we'll just start there. And if it says no, then we're going to move to 3A. So yes, right? Okay. So the emotions that are in this, so I actually have an app that I use that kind of gives me all of the descriptions of them. So then what you do is you go through each of the, because there's 55 emotions on this. So this is narrowing it down so you can get down to where you're really getting to the nitty gritty. So if did the 1A work, Jennifer? Okay, so we're going to start, you're going to look at those and you're going to ask yourself, can you guys see it okay? I don't know if I can make it bigger. Let's see if I can. Oh, I can. Hang on. Let's zoom in a little bit. 50%. Oops, that went down. My bad. There we go. So can you guys read them? So just start going down the list and asking. And if you get a yes, stop at that one. I don't want you to just keep asking because the odds of you having multiple trapped emotions is really high. So just whatever one comes up as a yes first, we're going to release that one together. And then I'm going to give you guys this chart that you can use on yourself. And if you want to continue the testing after, like later today or after the meeting, you can. But I just wanted to do at least one together. So go ahead and start working your way down the list. And you don't have to say it out loud. You can just say it in your mind because your subconscious is in your mind. And if you want to either put it in the chat or unmute and share with me what I can read it to you so you know what it is that you're dealing with. Mine came up as despair, and I actually can feel it in my stomach. And I know exactly, without having to ask more questions, I know exactly where it's coming from. I recently have quit eating sugar and flour. And for me, I was super addicted. And that felt very despairing. It felt like, oh, I'm never going to be able to, but I'm going to show you how to get to that next. So once you get your emotion, I'm going to tell you what to do next with the questions. So does everyone have theirs? If you don't, that's okay. You can keep going. Well, and then I'll read. So mine was despair. Does anyone else have despair? Overwhelm. Okay. So I'll go to yours next, Mom. So despair was a complete loss of hope, miserable and unable to be helped or comforted, which I've used food, sugar as a comfort. So that makes perfect sense to me. Worry and abandon. Okay, so overwhelm. I'm going to read Janice's first. Overwhelm. Which column is that in, Mom? Oh, I see it. Overwhelm says to be overpowered in mind or emotion, extreme stress, feeling overpowered with superior force, feeling excessively burdened. So does that give you some good idea of what? Okay. And then Jim, you have worry. So worry says dwelling on difficulty or troubles, unease or anxiety about a situation or a person, extreme concern over potential problems, concern about a loved one in possible distress. So, and then Jennifer, abandonment. So abandonment is physical abandonment is having been left alone, left behind, or deserted. This is the type of abandonment that we most often see in childhood. The baby felt abandoned when her mother left her at daycare. Emotional abandonment is having been given up on, withdrawn from, separated from, or emotionally deserted. A feeling of being left behind. In a non-physical form, this can also be financial abandonment. She felt abandoned by him when he wouldn't talk to her about marital troubles. The college student felt abandoned when his parents stopped paying his tuition. So I'm not going to read lost yet, but I will. So I want you to pick abandonment. So Mom, I want you to hold overwhelm in your mind. Jim, hold worry. Jennifer, abandonment. I'm going to hold despair. And now we're going to ask our subconscious mind, do we need to know anything further? Do I need to know anything further to release this emotion? So I got a yes. So I'll show you guys how we're going to do that. Did anyone else get a yes? Okay. So the next step then is splitting your life in half. So we're going to look for the time period. So was this in the last half of your life? I always start with the last. I don't know why, but I do. So was this trapped emotion in the last half of your life? In my life? So mine's coming up in the first half of my life. So I'm 42. So I'm going to look at the 0 to 21 space. So whatever half you got, then you're going to take that and you're going to say, was this in my 0 to 10? Or if it was the later part of your life, you're going to say 30 to 40. And then you're going to kind of keep squishing it down until you can just ask smaller single questions. Was this at age 31? Was this at age 32? And keep in mind, I've had times where it's come up at age 26 and it ended up being like 27, but I was so close to turning to so close that I just turned 27 that it was still making me feel like I was 26. So just keep in mind that it might not be the exact date, but it'll be within a couple of years. So you're going to ask 0 to 10, 20 to 30, whatever range until we find the age. So once you have your age, then just put your hand up maybe. And if you get your age, you can move on to the next question, which is going to be, do I need to know anything further about this? And then you'll have a yes or a no. So mine doesn't. After mine was at age 8, it said I didn't need to know anything else. So to me, simply just knowing that it was in my childhood is all I need to know. Because sometimes our emotions can be tied to an event. And if my subconscious mind is telling me I don't need to know anything further, it doesn't want me drudging through the experience. So once you have a yes or no, if people have yes, still they need to know more, we'll step into the next question. And you don't feel like you have to share the event. If you want to, you can, but if you know what event, if the age came up and you're like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what it is, then ask the question of that event. Okay, yes, age 6. So ask the question if you have a thought. So I started thinking like age 8, do I really know anything about that? So then I asked, do I need to know anything further? And it said no. Then I'm going to just let it go because I really couldn't think of anything. So that means I've probably stored an experience in my body and it just needs to be released. So does anyone else need to know further information? No? So yours was a yes, Jennifer? Okay. So now you're going to ask, was this an absorbed emotion? So now we're going to ask, was it even yours? Because it could be something from someone else that you don't even know about. Wow, 22 in type A. Wow. So you know what it is then, huh, Mom? That's awesome. So what was the response? Yes, it was an absorbed emotion, Jennifer. Okay. So at this point, you now don't know. Most likely you wouldn't know. So we're going to ask again, do you need to know anything further about this emotion? And then if you have, if it says yes, we're going to ask if it is apparent or we'll kind of narrow it down again, but it may just say, no, we don't need to know anything, but it looks like your subconscious is saying yes. So yes. Okay. So now we're going to ask, is it apparent? Okay. So now you can ask if it was mom. Okay. So it looks like Jennifer is coming from your mom. So in the event, if you don't get all the information that you need, you can always reach out to your mom and say, hey, because there's actually been studies that have come up about parents and like mothers and daughters or fathers and sons that have come in to get this testing done. And then they go, like one woman, it was this really interesting story. She had this hip pain her whole entire life. She was 20 something and they had gone to Dr. Bradley's emotion code session, like in person. And he actually did a clearing on the daughter, but it kept coming up saying that it wasn't hers, that it was absorbed. And then the mom, she stood up and she started crying. And she was like, oh my gosh, when she was a baby, I accidentally pinned her diaper to her. I had cloth diapers in it. That's what caused the hip pain. And she had carried all this guilt. So her daughter had actually absorbed the guilt because she didn't know that her daughter was pinned to her diaper until like hours later. So she had this guilt that she was carrying. And so sometimes we don't know, and maybe your mom might not even remember anything, and she may not even acknowledge it. She may just say, I don't know, because she may have something that's being carried with that. But the abandonment could also be age 6 for her. So we can even have inherited emotions. So now I want you to ask, Jennifer, if you could ask if it's inherited, because it can be absorbed and inherited. So this could be something that goes generations. So we can actually, I think that Dr. Bradley has people in his, I've not done it with people, but he has gone like 15 generations back to find where this trapped emotion goes. And so it's really interesting because you can get nitty gritty with it. But you can still release the emotion even without not knowing all of that stuff. So now I want you to ask your subconscious mind if we can release the emotion. So everybody, if you haven't asked that, let's ask it again. And say the word, can I release this trapped emotion of whatever it is? And if you get a strong yes, then I'm going to show you how to release it. So I haven't gone into magnets because that's like a lot to try and teach you guys all about the magnets. But if you're having emotion right now, it's okay to let it go. If you want to cry, if you want to, be sad, whatever it is that you're feeling, let the feeling come up and let it process through. But we're now going to set the intention that we're going to release it. So I use a magnet, but you don't have to use anything to release it. So I'll show you how I did this before I used magnets. But we have a governing meridian that runs from our upper lip over the third eye area, like the third eye, and then over the head down to the back of the neck. So you're basically going to take 2 fingers and you're going to start at your upper lip, and you'll basically just run that over that meridian as you think in your mind that you're intentionally releasing this trapped emotion of whatever it is, and taking deep breaths, breathing in through your nose, and do it 3 times. And thinking the intention of letting it go. Jennifer, yours is inherited, so you're going to do it 10 times. You're actually going to go all the way to 10. And it doesn't matter which arm, you can do either arm. You can switch arms midway if you feel like that would kind of like get both sides of your body. And actually, I'm going to look at yours. So heart or small intestines, Jennifer, that I wonder, have you had some heart pain, or like not heart pain, but like chest pain? Yeah. Okay. So this may get rid of that. And you may have multiple emotions in there. Like you said, you showed up as well. So keep going until you get to 10. And Jim, if you, were you able to say yes to release yours, or was yours wanting more information? And okay, yes. So if everybody has released theirs, typically what I would do next for myself is I would ask, is there another emotion that I can release? And then I would go through that whole process again, which when I give you this chart, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to do it yourself. If you're getting stuck with where it's coming from and you can't figure out what it is, or maybe if you're starting to feel frustrated, then don't worry about it. It's okay. We can always meet and then I can kind of walk you through it. But if you're interested in this and has made like a lot of sense to you, go get the book. The book is so good because it gives you so many different examples of it. But I've pretty much taught you everything in the book besides the magnet part. So the magnet is simply a magnification. So this is simply magnifying the intention to release that energy from our body. So it's simply just a tool to make it seem bigger. But I think that your fingers work just fine too. So on that note, we have come to the end of our journey. And Jennifer, I will send you the meaning of lost as well, because I want you to be able to know that. The app that I have is, generationally. Oh, see, okay, so Jim is also a family member, so that makes me wonder. I'm curious. Because the cool thing about inherited emotions, I did not tell you guys this, when you have a generational emotion that has been carried down from person to person, we actually can release that emotion from our entire family. So if we set the intention to get rid of it for the whole family, then we now have not only healed ourselves, but we've healed our entire family. And they don't even have to believe or know about it. So one thing though that Dr. Bradley Nelson is very, very serious about is that you can't muscle test someone without their permission. So like, I actually can do muscle testing at a distance. So I've done emotion code sessions with my mom, but I have to have her permission because it is something where it's sacred to go into someone's space without knowing. So I would never, ever, while I probably could do it because I do have a natural intuitive ability, I would never just go into someone's subconscious space without them knowing. And I hold that in the highest honor of not wanting people to. And actually, even when I do my sessions, sometimes I don't even, I don't want to say I don't get the answers. Like when I'm working on someone else, their information, it's not like it's coming into my mind. I knew things with my mom because she and I are genetically connected. So it was like, oh, there were things that came up. I think because my subconscious mind knew that. Now I do believe my subconscious mind could find those things for other people because I'm very empathic. But I would never do that unless I had permission to know that. So what I do is very high level, and I don't do a lot of diving unless you ask those questions and we want to go through that together. So if you're interested in doing a session, we can do that. And then that kind of gives you a better idea too of like being able to dive down into really deep stuff and going, okay. And then I also recommend you keep a journal. So like today, make sure you write down what you came up with, write down what it was that you healed from, because it's interesting when I go back and look at the things I've healed from, I'm like, it's different every time. Like you would think like, oh, it's probably the same thing over and over again. I was a skeptic thinking, oh, the same emotions are going to just keep coming up and the same experiences, but it hasn't. It's been a different experience every time, and shocking ones too, like just randomly out of nowhere. I'm like, whoa, where'd that come from? I never would have thought about that. So it's cool to start to understand and get to know your subconscious mind. When you mentioned lung and heart pain, I've had heart palpitations and an ache that I was considering mentioning to the doctor, but anytime I'm gone, I'm healthy. So that's exactly why it's I think it's a trapped emotion, Jennifer, because that's what Dr. Bradley said, why this led him to this path was because there were people that were having so many health concerns. So he's a chiropractor as well. And he was like, there's nothing showing up on their blood work. There's nothing showing up on their scans. Everything looks perfectly healthy. And so it makes perfect sense that you would have a trapped emotion. So we didn't talk about heart walls. Heart walls are pretty amazing. They are basically this layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of emotions that has built up around your heart center. So remember we talked about the heart math in the beginning and the heart and brain connection. When you have emotions kind of surrounding your heart organ, your true authentic self is emanated from your heart center. So your mind is really where your thoughts come from and where your subconscious mind dictates, and it's like the processing center, but the heart is the feeling. That's where our massive amount of love comes from. That's where we connect with other people. And so when that heart is engulfed in these trapped emotions, it's almost like a filter. And so when the heart is trying to express itself, it's still coming out distorted. It's coming through that filter of those despair or abandonment or lost. Those feelings are basically engulfing your heart. And so when that filter of emotion is emanating, you're still not able to vibrate at the frequency of love because it's distorted love, right? So it's coming through that pain that you're still suffering from. So when we start to unlayer that, you'll start to notice that you'll start to express yourself more. You'll start to feel happier. You'll start to recognize that the things that used to make you really sad and angry, they don't anymore. And you're like, wow, I've just, and even the heart palpitations. So I didn't have the same thing, but I had a heaviness that was in my chest. And I really thought I was like having heart disease. And all of a sudden, like I've been doing this work, it's getting lighter and lighter. Now I didn't have this massive like feeling of relief right away. Mine was so layered that it took me probably about 3 or 4 sessions to get out of that relief. And now I get every now and then where it's like, oh, I feel it coming back. So then I ask, is like, okay, because I believe that there can be other things that kind of come up as you process. It's kind of like, when you rinse out a dirty glass, like you might rinse it once and then you're like, oh, it's still dirty. And then you rinse it again, oh, it's still dirty. And eventually until you get that glass shiny and clean, but you're going to keep having emotions every day. So it's not like you're going to always have a perfectly clean glass. And we don't necessarily want to be there, but we want to make sure that we're processing so that we're not always carrying this emotional baggage that's causing us to be stuck. There are people that are doing the emotion code. And even for myself, I've been expressing myself more freely. So yes, love does have a specific identified frequency. And actually, this frequency is the only one that can get through other emotions. So the frequency of love is the only one that can emanate and break through other trapped emotions or other types of emotions, which is why when you have someone who's angry, yes, when you allow it, when you have someone who's angry in front of you, if you send them love, they're powerless because that frequency is untouchable. So that's why we talk about self-love and self-care. That's why it's so important to continue to love yourself every single day and filling yourself with that frequency, because if you have so much of that frequency in you, it eventually will flush everything out anyways. So like when you see people, I'm not saying that this is the only way you can heal yourself, but sometimes people have had so much trauma in their life, so much baggage, that they need something to kind of like break the mold, like get that stuff off of there and start doing what we're supposed to be doing. And then you're able to fill your cup and like, oh, wow, now I'm starting to feel self-love. Now I'm really getting what people were talking about. Because I have studied this for so long. And I kept saying like, why is it that some people get it and some people don't? Like some people will have success and some people won't. And this is the only thing that I have found that makes the most sense, is that there are some people that are just carrying those old emotional bags. They're just lugging those around, and we just need to take off the backpack, take off the bag, and start to breathe again. So one thing that I've been practicing is the coherent heart breathing. And it's basically you sit and you imagine there's a light in your heart. And then you take these deep breaths. So you count to 5 as you breathe in through your nose. And you imagine that light expanding. And then as you exhale, you're just releasing all of that. It's like there's no inhaling good, exhaling bad. We're just inhaling good and then allowing the good to just settle. Inhaling more good so it's almost like this pumping of good, positive energy. And you do that at least 5 times. And then you can say something like, may I be filled full of grace. May I be healthy. May I be happy. And you can just start to put those positive things into you, because once your heart becomes coherent and speaking to your mind properly, then those affirmations can help you. Like a lot of people do affirmation work and they're like, it doesn't really work for me. Like sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. This is why, because you're holding on to old stuff. So yeah, it will be uncomfortable at first until you realize that it's happening. Feeling is the secret. I have started going back to doing silent stuff. I haven't done like sitting in silence for a while. And I did it this morning. It was super uncomfortable. I was like, I have not done this. And I think that was why I was able to release more trapped emotions. So I released blaming, jealousy, and despair today. And I feel so light, like I feel joyful. And I think that spending time in silence is allowing those things to kind of come forward to the forefront. So I want to open this up because I realize it's already 11:45. I didn't expect it to go so long, but you guys are so amazing. And you did this awesome job just being open to this whole process. So I'm going to go ahead and open it